Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine, talking with elder law attorney Tim Takis. If you are caring for an aging loved one, what are some things you can do throughout that process? And one of the things people worry about the most, I think, is the cost of nursing home care, which is so expensive.
Right.
You know, we've talked. How much would you say it is a month?
Generally runs a minimum of $7,000 a month, sometimes up to $9,000 to $10,000 a month. You know, so you're looking at, you know, the cost. I mean, think about, you know, having to spend basically $100,000 a year,
right,
on long-term care costs.
Wow.
You know, and now people aren't. I mean, there are people out there that may spend years in long-term care, nursing home care. At some point, unless they have bukus of money, they're going to pay. They're going to wind up on the Medicaid program.
Right.
You know, and if there's a spouse at home, you know, what are their options? Leaving money to, let's say they have dependents. You know, not just like like some people think, well, they're just the greedy kids. Well, sometimes parents have children with special needs, they have issues, you know, can't live by themselves, all sorts of things, all the reasons why maybe you should plan. You know, and so we see, I mean, that's a common sort of refrain that we have, people walking into the office, sometimes parents, sometimes children, you know, it just,
how are we going to pay?
How are we going to pay for this? You know, and what kind of plan should we put in place? Now, you know, we see plans, you know, actually what's interesting to me, sometimes I see people that come in and they have their own plans. You know, just for instance, just recently I had a, you know, I had a conversation with I think he was a son, you know, the son called and, you know, was talking, you know, his CPA was on the line and they're saying as well, you know, we know that you work on, you know, the CPA knows me, you know, and the son is you know, is an attorney in, so where does he practice? You know, doesn't do this type of work.
Right.
You know, but his father lives in, I think, New York or someplace like that. You know, and they'd kind of like done some of their own planning. Okay. You know, and so dad's 90 years old and the son is, you know, mid-60s, you know, fixing to retire and whatever it is. And, you know, the son and his father had owned this house together in New York and, you know, about 4 years ago, the dad transferred the house to his son, so now son owns it. You know, his dad's got money, so they created a trust in which the son is the trustee, and so they're calling and asking me what they should do about that. Right. You know, and it's like, okay, so good that they're planning, good that they're trying to do something. You know, but you know, a lot of times, you know, what people do is that they tend to ignore things like tax consequences. All right, because consider this is that, okay, 4 years ago, you know, dad transfers the house to son, which they own together. Well, dad's still living in the house, he's doing okay. He's worried about, what if I go to a nursing home? So now when he transfers the house to his son, now, when the house is sold sometime later, frankly, let's say when dad dies, right, there's going to be a very large capital gain because the son and his father had owned the house for 20-some years, you know, and the value has gone from $200,000 to $450,000. So when son sells the house, it's going to be a $250,000 capital gain. Right, right. You know, and you know, for a lawyer, the son's being a lawyer, if that's a lot of, you know, he's making a good living, so he doesn't want that income. You know, but as I often say, is that capital gains tax could pay for several months of nursing home care. You know, and they don't even need that. You know, he doesn't even need asset protection. You know, and so then the dad's still living in the house. He's not paying rent. You know, to the son. So I told the son this afternoon, I said, well, you know, every time that dad pays the rent, you know, or doesn't pay the rent, but pays the taxes and the insurance and whatever, that could be considered a gift by your state Medicaid program. So are you starting a 5-year look-back period every time, you know, dad pays, you know, that dad's paying his own taxes and insurance on a house he doesn't own? You know, so you get all sorts of things like that, you know.
Good grief, so, yeah, well that sounds...
You know, so the CPA's going, well, you know, what do we do about that? And it says, well, you know, I'm not the tax guy, you know, you are. it's really one of those things that, you tried to put a plan in place, which is in some way good, but at the same time, a lot of it is that, you need to get professional help, and not just people that know how to draw, know how to draw a trust, or know that, well, the nursing home's going to get everything.
And that's one of those things that you don't like at all, when they pass property or money on to a child.
Yeah, and you've heard me say that. I know. All our regular viewers know that. When I think about it, I can't remember the last time I ever counseled a client to give away his or her money or property, just outright, because that's almost, in my view, just almost never a good idea.
And yet people do it all the time.
Yeah, they do it all the time.
You had these two smart people in your office, and they'd done it.
Yeah, they'd done it. Yeah.
Yeah, people do it all the time.
People do it all the time, and they think, they worry that, well, what happens if I wind up in a nursing home? I need to do this. Well, one is they forget that when they give their money or property away, they can't get it back, and that bad things happen to children. I mean, children get married, they get divorced, they go bankrupt, they get into lawsuits.
No, they get sued,
as I say, is they go down the road, they drive down the road and hit a bus full of school children. And they, what are they going to do when the parents of those children come looking and say, no, you can't touch that house because I'm just holding that for daddy. That doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Which is why we always we'll use a trust or something like that, so that the assets are protected. I mean, that's real asset protection.
Right. I know so many people who talk about doing that. Yeah. And then I hear you say that. Right. And it makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah, and see, what our job is for families, they come in and they say, well, they don't do it from us really, but they can go down the street and some lawyer will draft a deed for them for $200 or $300 or whatever. And needless to say, it costs considerably more for us to draft a trust and do it what we think is the right way. Well, our job is ultimately, in this type of practice that we have, much of it is about managing risk.
Right.
Okay, managing risk of loss of your money, managing risk of loss of your health. We have elderly people that come in, and they're concerned about, well, I want to live at home as long as possible. Well, it's like, so what have you done to your home to help you manage that? To help you manage the risk that you can stay there? Do you have throw rugs everywhere that you're going to fall over? Is your house crowded with furniture and now you have macular degeneration and you can't see? Mm-hmm. And you're going to fall over something? Do you have a personal emergency response system, where you can punch a button, and summon help? All of those are a part of managing risk.
The other thing people are worried about is they're going to lose their house, right? Uh-huh. And so someone comes in and says, I don't want to lose my house. Yeah. I don't know you can pick the stage in life, whether they're married, because I know the answer to that one. Let's say, they're single or whatever. Someone comes in with that concern, I don't want to lose my house.
Right.
Where do you go from there?
Yeah. Well, then it's like, okay, what are you worried about? Why do you think you're going to lose your house? And then typically will be well, what if I go into a nursing home? And I might say, well, you're 71 years old and you recently widowed, and you're in good health, so if you give your house away, is that what you're talking about doing? Well, maybe, because, we've got children. It's like, well, you give your house to your kids. Did you ever worry that they may lose the house? And most of the time it's like, I never thought about that, or I know that my son would give the house back to me if I really needed it. It's like, are you sure? I mean, frankly, most elder financial abuse occurs, the victim and the perpetrator know each other, and often they're relatives. Family members come in and they know that, daddy, I'm sure daddy, he knows I'm in a bind, and he'll give me some money, mm-hmm. And it kind of goes like that, mm-hmm. And those are the kind of things that, it gets down to, I can't stop you from, you can walk down the street and find another lawyer that would probably draft a deed and just wouldn't think twice about it. Oh, you want to give your house to your kids? I'll draft the deed for you. And they don't feel like there's any reason to counsel you about that.
But there is this concern about, okay, mm-hmm. nursing home care is so expensive, and maybe to pass the house on to the kids, and when I'm gone, the nursing home will take the house,
right.
which I know have something to say about that. But yeah, the nursing home will take the house. What about that concern?
Yeah, well, that concern comes from the very real possibility that if a person is in the nursing home and they own a house, the person owns a house, and the person who at some point winds up getting Medicaid benefits. Now we're talking about a single or an unmarried person. We're not talking about someone who is married, because that's a whole different set of rules. So all the spouses out there who are watching, there are options for that don't include giving away the house.
And I would just say it would just go straight to the spouse. That's the biggest. It goes straight
to the spouse.
It goes to the
Medicaid
spouse.
does not have a claim on it. But if you're not married, you have no spouse, you're not survived by a disabled child, and you die and you're in the nursing home and on Medicaid, the state has a right to recoup what they paid out for you. Medicaid does not have a lien on the property. All right, and that's one of the things that people, I know lawyers out there that believe that they are convinced that Medicaid has a lien on the property if you go into a nursing home and you're on Medicaid. Medicaid does not have a lien on the property. Medicaid can't stop you from selling the property. You can be in the nursing home for 5 years and Medicaid pays, but 2 weeks before you die, you can sell the house, and you got money and you're off of Medicaid, and Medicaid has no claim when you die, because you have to be on Medicaid at the time of your death. So there are a lot of things that you can do in order to avoid or minimize the risk of needing, of the house going to Medicaid.
Right.
And again, it still gets back down to, Ben, is that people need to have a plan in place.
Right.
Most people don't go from being very healthy one day and winding up in a nursing home within a few weeks or months after that. It's typically a long-term progression where people wind up needing nursing home care. In some ways, it's almost predictable. People walk into our office, they relate our concerns about, we ask them a lot of questions about their health, what can we expect for them, and frankly, because of the professional expertise that my staff has, because we have several people who have medical backgrounds, on my staff, we can make some reasonable projections about what our clients can expect.
Right.
And we use that information and help planning for them.
Why don't we take a call here before we go to break? Let's go to Marie. Hello, Marie.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Yes, I would like to know what I was thinking about doing a reverse mortgage on my home, and I was wondering if you could recommend a company that I could trust to do that.
All right. Thank you. We get this question often.
We do.
Not just a company, and you can do that if you want. Also, is it a good idea?
Yeah.
But yeah, so here's someone questioning that whole thing. What do you think?
And for one, I'm not going to recommend a company, but what I will suggest that Marie do is that you can go onto the website of the U.S. Housing and Urban Development, HUD.gov. The HUD.gov has a program called the HECM reverse mortgage. It's kind of like a house equity conversion mortgage is what it's called. So basically what that means is that it's for people that maybe have, they own a house, they don't have a lot of money, but they really need to get more equity out of their house so they can stay living in the house. That's kind of like the key thing.
Right.
It's not for people who really are maybe 6 months to a year they won't be able to live in the house anymore. It's for typically healthy older people who need the resources and need to draw the equity out of the house so that they can continue to have a good standard of living in the house.
Right.
Pay the taxes, the insurance, keep up their standard and all that. So that's what it's for.
You're taking money out of your house.
You're taking money out of your house. It's like your savings account is your house.
Right.
And the way these things work is that the companies, for a reverse mortgage, you're able to borrow a particular percentage of what the value of the house is. Now, the house has to be free and clear. That's the way the federal reverse mortgages do. And if it's not, part of that money will have to come out and use to pay the mortgage off, an existing mortgage.
Okay.
Now, you may get money. I mean, in other words, let's say the house is worth $200,000 and the government say will lend up to, say, 40%. I'm just using that as a ballpark. You're not going to get 75 or 80 or 90% of the value of the house.
Right, you won't get all 200,000.
Yeah. So let's say it's 40%, so they're going to say, all right, that's $80,000. So they're going to give you or loan you $80,000. You do not have to pay that back during your lifetime unless you move out of the house. So you move out of the house, let's say that 3 or 4 years down the road, you say, look, I can't live in the house anymore, or whatever it is. And when you leave the house is sold, and the reverse mortgage company is paid off. There is no repayment up until then. Or let's say you die. 3 years, 4 years later, you pass away, then the reverse mortgage, that's when they collect. And it doesn't matter whether the house is still worth, interest continues to accrue. Okay, the house is, let's say, $80,000. Well, what if we have a major disruption in the real estate market, and the house is not worth what it's owed on it? All that the reverse mortgage company can get, is what they get out of the house. They can't come after you for the difference. They can't come after your heirs for the difference.
Right. Okay.
But you have to keep the house up. There's some obligations that the homeowner has. Okay. So it's a very interesting product. A lot of most of our clients aren't looking for reverse mortgages because, I mean, for one, sometimes they have money and they don't need it. Sometimes they come into us and they don't have a lot of money, but they may not be able to stay at home for much longer. So why should we put a lot of money into trying to get a reverse mortgage when they're going to be leaving, in 6 months to a year?
I've heard really, so many pros and cons, and it is tough. It's going to depend a lot on your circumstance, but they should really research it.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's a good question, though. I'm glad you called, Marie. All right, we have to take a break. Carl and others, if you're on the line, hold on. If you want to call in, there's the number 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.